Okay, so my prep for November 2nd. I've been looking at these charts and fundamentals for the last couple hours. I actually did not find as many things as I thought I would, so there might be some game day decisions to be made on Monday early. The first one we'll start is just going over the MGEN trade. Um, you can see what low floats can do. Uh, Consistent up, consistent down, consistent up. This is what you want to trade, and I have a tracker that I have here. Basically tells me how big of a range this thing has. So I'm looking for something over 10. Obviously the range is still high, so to me this is still tradable, and this created a really good opportunity. Honestly, this would be a great buying opportunity off this bottom. Just knowing the history of the stock, you should already know that if it starts going up, 80 cents to $1.50, so 50 cents, it's gonna hit at least $1. Also, your resistance is at 0.8, so it's gonna be fill the gap almost 99% of the time. Of course, the problem with this guy is that it never really gave you an entry, because it just shot up. So you would have had to be a machine to catch this. But when it pulled back, it was in that same territory, and the fact that it pulled back up basically shows you that what used to be the resistance is now the support. And so the name of the game is always retrace to the previous support or resistance, and is it gonna flip or not? In this case, it flipped. So my future thesis on this is that almost no way this goes down to 0.8. In the previous video, I suggested that no way this goes down below $1, because they also need it higher due to the issuance. So anyways, as I said, I shorted from here to here, I shorted from here to here. I was never confident going long on it, knowing in the end that they're gonna issue shares. So I don't want to go long here, even when I saw it was bullish, and then get hit with an 8 p.m. issuance and a halt, and then everything opens at 50%. So that's my biggest thing. I knew that this was bullish because of the previous support, and my risk, I knew that it was low at 10 cents and some change, but the SPO made me not want to play this game. In the previous video, I talked about how this was a gift that keeps on giving, because this squeeze to fill the gap at $2, if you look on the daily, this is empty space. Empty space is very easy to fill because everyone agrees in general. It's like religion. Everyone just agrees that if there's a gap to fill, they're gonna go for it. So it was easy to convince buyers, and it was easy to convince shorts to cover into this gap fill. So once the gap fill happens, the next resistance above the gap fill are stronger. So my suggestion was, if it doesn't hit $2, short it on the next high. In this case, it was 193, and just ride it all the way down. But I'm keeping this on watch because I think the institutions need to push this up higher. Again, they're trying to issue 91 million worth of shares via secondary offering, and their market cap is too low for them to remain above $1 once they do that. And I think they really need to be above $1 because they have no other news going forward. If they don't deliver, they might get delisted and go into OTC. So MGEN is still on watch. Ideally, my plan is what do I write down? I hope they push to closer to 160, somewhere in this range. And this is my volume range. This is where the little technicals are showing me the most volume that happened. So something like above 143, peak up above 143, maybe 145, 149. Put in a wick, I would start my short there. And if it goes above 160, I would also expect this to be a very short-lived situation and double that short. And wait for the issuance, and then maybe a pump after the shares are issued. We'll see. But right now, any large sizable pops will get shorted. And of course, I am looking at this. I'm paying big attention. To me, the standard volume the volume deviation has to be sizable. If it's just ordinary, nothing crazy happens, I don't want to play this game, because that means the price might not be fast enough to react. I don't want to hold the position for 3 to 4 days. Next up, EQ. Just go over that one as well real quick. This is a stock I'm already familiar with, and it's easy to be familiar with it because if you just look at the daily, you see what happened. It already had crazy buying and it had crazy unloading, and there were people stuck in this. I was actually in the chat rooms, and they were saying, I bought it $12.20, I bought it $12, $9, $8. Will this ever go back up? So when it actually went to the levels that it did, I already had everything pre-drawn previously. You see the wicks here, you see the wicks here. Once this put in a big long wick with reduced trend line recognition, and also you have again a good standard deviation trade showing you that there's a lot of movement. So anyways, once this put in a lower high, this was a good short, and my short average was just below $8. And honestly, I should not have covered all the way, because it never gave a cover signal. It never went above VWAP if that was your risk, and you would just close out the day on the lows basically. I'm also holding EQ for potential retrade on the short side only, because it dumped so much that there's always a small possibility that it'll pop back up. I mean, the low on the daily was just below $5, and it hit just below $6. So between shorts covering, it being SSR, well, actually I take it back. It's not going to be SSR because it was up technically. Between the shorts covering and buys coming in, I would still maybe expect this to go up and maybe present a reshort when it hits $7. But to me, it's all about supply and resistance lines. If it doesn't hit 694, I'm not really interested. I want it to go above VWAP 100%. If it never goes above VWAP, I'm not touching it. My main focus, I think, is actually going to be ZDGE, and I spent a lot of time on this one. This is on my favorite short reversal scan. It popped up late at night, and this is a tough one because it doesn't have any overhead supply. It has some resistances from way back in the day, and it's almost clearing them all out. I mean, this is from 428 from like 2 years ago, so most often than not, most likely most people are already out. I can't imagine someone holding the stock for that long and being a bag holder for 2 years. It's possible, and maybe these are the folks that caused these wicks when they're selling off. But I don't think there's enough of them, and that also explains the rise up. And looking on the smaller time frames, I thought this was a reasonably safe short when it popped up, and I wasn't able to get locates. I liked this short into here. I thought that was good, and I'm glad I'm not one of those people that holds their short positions. But I guess what I'm trying to say, this is a complicated one, but I am looking at it, and so some research on this company is that they're actually technically making money. They're an app. You can look them up. I think they're called ZDGE on iOS and Android, and apparently folks buy them. I read their 10Qs and 10Ks and everything else. It's a 9.3 million float. They have 23% institution, so it's a low float. It's going up every day, and it could get manipulated. And they issued an offering in February, which actually gave them enough cash to continue operations for a long time. They did have an issuance about continuing decline in its monthly average users, as well as a shift in the regional customer makeup with monthly average users in emerging markets representing an increasing portion. So they're concerned about the fact that more people are downloading in emerging markets and the revenue from ads is less over there. Meanwhile, developed markets, I think they lost 18% of their base from 11.8 to 9 point something. So they're potentially having declining users, and their user base actually went from 33.8 to 31.9, but they released this little premium thing. You can pay extra money to get rid of ads, and people somehow got suckered in. Apparently they made millions from these dummies who are like, oh my god, let me not get ads anymore, I'll just pay $10 a month or $10 a year. Anyways, it worked, and they also relieved a massive PPP loan that they won't have to pay off. So all in all, they showed just a steady increase in cash from before the issuance. They were at 1 point something. Now they're at 5.1 million, with only 3.1 million in liabilities, and almost none of them are really due in large sums. So yeah, this could be actually bullish. I'm a little undecided how I want to trade this, if I want to touch this at all. I like the long wicks. I would like for them to stay, but you know, the volume will tell the story. They did go up on some pretty big volume, and so this could be the end of the move. This could be the exhaustion. So even if there's not overhead supply, even if everyone is technically positive, this is something like SRRK that I'm looking at as well, where you know, investors are happy with what they received, and they might want to take their money out because the economy could be faltering. So it hit those old resistance levels, and folks are putting in these wicks and saying, you know what, I'm happy, I'm taking my money, and I might be out of here. And then the volume is kind of gone. You had this 145 million day, but now every single day is around a million. To me, I think if tomorrow puts in, you know, it's 1.78, 632, 1.131. If this puts in less than a million shares, and I'm going to compare what I saw on pre-market. So if it puts in less than, you know, 100,000, 200,000 volume in pre-market, I actually think this could fade and start selling off, because that's usually what happens. But I'm going to keep a very close eye on it. I absolutely don't want this to go above 3.86, because to me, anything in here, it's just gonna go for the stratosphere. I mean, you have no selling over here, so you have some wicks over here, you have some wicks over here. I want the next wick to be here. Basically, I need a lower high to touch this thing. Otherwise, I'm not gonna go long on it, because I think an app is not a sustainable business method, especially in COVID. But yeah, this thing is holding strong. Another few ones that I'm watching, well, like I just mentioned, SRRK. So I was actually worried, where did it go? I was worried that this thing could also keep going forever, and my theory on it was a third day short. Usually works 90% of the time. Essentially shorting a stock that's going up ridiculously on the third day around the open, letting the pre-market pre-exhaust itself as well. So that worked. The suggestion was to short it at 43. It barely touched 43 and went back down. I put in this resistance line at 42.75, because this is another situation where if it hits 75 cents, it's going to hit potentially that next dollar amount. So in my case, I don't really want it to base over 42.75. If anything, I just want it to touch or put in a wick and go back down below. Right now, there's not much risk reward that's clear to me, because while I think this could go back down to 33, 34 levels where the volume was seen a couple days ago, I also want it further away from WeVap. So since it's under WeVap right now, I'm looking for it to retest, bump up, put in a wick, and go down. If it's just going sideways, it's not a good short because you don't know what it does when it goes to VWAP, and you don't know what it does when, you know, it's sitting at 39.46 essentially. So if it hits 36.32, that's already a chunk of the move, and I don't want to risk chasing that, and I don't trust for it to go long. So I don't think it's gonna hit 42.81 either, 42.75 either. So my best case scenario would be, I hope, fingers crossed, it gets into this previous volume, 41.46, maybe gets into 41 and a half, or anything above 41. And if it puts a wick and starts going down, since there is technically no positive trend in this anymore, and they have a lot of overhead supply that's all in the money, they're all positive, well, they might want to take some cash off the table. So hopefully above 41, and then it's a short. And I think that short could go down all the way to 35 and a half, maybe in a day. So those are my main watches really. It's I'm gonna keep watching MGEN, EQ, very low probability, but I'm watching it. ZDGE, definitely watching it. SRRK. I mean, another one that I am watching is, there's a few more, of course. DSKE. So this one is flirting with previous all-time highs. It'll be a reactive trade for me. This could easily go both ways. It's 43 million float with 25% institutions, and they crushed their ER. I read their report. I mean, I would have bought it. It looks really good. Actually, I probably would have bought it before their earnings if I had looked at it earlier. 335 million cap company, not easily to manipulate. So when we see a volume like this, I mean, it's a low float, but what I mean to say is institutions are tracking it. It's not like something that pops up and goes away. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm actually almost looking to go long on it potentially, because it's testing all-time highs. So clearly the trend is bullish, and their earnings report was very good. So if they retrace to something like 630, retest VWAP, I would like to buy a VWAP dip. But at the same time, I'm always looking for confirmation retrading, which means if it goes below VWAP, I need to see a wick that is putting fast, and something that bounces right up. Of course, I'm also going to try to match it with time. So for example, you have the 6 a.m. volume coming in, you have the 7 a.m. volume coming in, you have 8 a.m., and then you have 9:15-ish, 9 a.m. So at 5 a.m., I'm not going to expect much to happen. You know, if it goes to 6:24, 26, and it's holding there, I'll just kind of let it sit there. But then at 6 a.m., I needed to go whop, and I would buy on the way up because I would be watching it closely, and hopefully it keeps going and crushes all-time highs. I mean, they reported, and I feel like, you know, the day absorbed the report. They're like, okay, we love it, it's great. We're not sure about it, and then it's like, oh my god, it's wonderful. I mean, it cleared out the day price, so that's bullish for me. It's an all-time high right now. I don't know if I'm missing something, but I believe it's an all-time high. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really counting anything from 2 years ago, so I should correct myself. It's not necessarily at all-time high. I just don't even look anything past 2 years, because no one in the right mind would be holding a stock past 2 years if it was down. So I don't believe there's any overhead supply. I think at this point everyone is positive. So it's kind of like an SRRK situation, except these guys are actually killing it as far as a company. And also gonna watch the HC. Bam, there it is. I got a pop alert on this volume rise. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. The volume isn't amazing. It's only 100,000 that caused this. somewhere around there, couple hundred thousand, I think, maybe like 200,000. But it's not a substantial move. So I'm actually looking at potentially shorting this. Unlike the other one, this doesn't have any new news. I was thinking maybe the pop is related to, you know, an old realization of what happened with the lawsuit. So they won a big lawsuit where Apple paid them a bunch of money. But if you look on the daily, this is already calculated in. That happened on September 1st. September 2nd, they went all the way to 659 and sold off. So this one has a ton of overhead supply, and I like this short a lot. Because bam, you sold off over here, you sold off over here, and now you make a move in aftermarket. So I actually should probably promote this to my second highest watch along with ZDGE. VHC is another one of those. Actually, the chart even looks similar to MGEN. It has 65 million float. The pop is all in after hours. And it has a lot of similarities. The only thing is it didn't pop immediately straight up. It had a bit of a stair step action, which makes it a little more bullish. But it has a lot of overhead supply. So yeah, this is going to be a good one. VHC is going to the top of my list. But that's pretty much what I'm looking at. SRRK, DSKE, ZDGE, MGEN for potential reshort, and then of course there's going to be some game time decisions. Just last note, I also am looking at ISIG because they're retesting the previous, but the way they're putting these wicks, and they don't really have any good news. It's also a good short. It's not at the top of my list because I don't think it's gonna go back up. You know, to me, I think 115, 120 was a great short. It sold off, but unlike the other ones that are retesting the more, you know, they have wicks at the top of their charts. This one has a recent overhead supply at the top of their chart. So you can imagine this is a little rock that's gonna crush whatever tries to go up there. So now that you have this wick, like, you might not even go above the $1.10, and then it's not enough risk reward. Considering that stocks always want to be above $1, and you never know what kind of manipulation you're gonna get from something. So you know, that's so low float. So shorting above $1 or below $1, I usually try to look for something that has no cash and is about to issue shares, which makes it a lot safer. Okay, I'll try to summarize what I'm looking at in the description, but hopefully this helped. It'll probably help me.